As Kenda introduced us, my name is Ryan Fleetwood. I'm here to host this panel today. We're going to talk about breeding excellence, and the great part is that we have knowledgeable people from different breeds here, and in a moment I'm going to let them all introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves and some background on their breed and also their own programs and what they do at home in breeding. I am a fourth generation rancher in southern Alberta, where my wife and I are raising the fifth generation in the same house on the same land, and my family's been breeding horses for that long. So on continues the legacy. I am in the AQHA breed, as is another friend of mine up here, but I'm going to turn it over at this time, and Melody will start with you. And again, if you would just give us some background about yourself, your program, and perhaps about the breed that you're representing. That would be great. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Ryan. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm just thrilled to be here. So I represent Rocking Heart Ranch. We are also located in southern Alberta, not too far from Ryan, and we breed registered quarter horses. We run about 30 brood mares, 3 different stallions. Our horses are the ones in the ring right now at the Trainers Challenge. We've been supplying those for a few years. And I am not quite as old as Ryan. I like to say I'm third generation. I haven't made it to fourth. I've raised the fourth, but we'll see if there's a fourth generation going to come back. But yeah, our ranch started actually in 1905 in Saskatchewan, and we started actually with some teams. My great-grandfather delivered rural mail with a team of horses, and that's where our start happened. We moved here from Saskatchewan in 1986, where we purchased our ranch down by Waterton. We primarily ran cow-calf for years, so I grew up on the back of a horse chasing cattle in the Rocky Mountains. A few years ago, we decided to focus completely on breeding, and we'd always had a few brood mares, but in 1986, actually, at Agribition is where we really got our start. My parents bought a mare named Smokes Holiday, and that was the start of our program. And over the years, we've just really evolved to the type of versatile quarter horses that we used on the ranch every day. So I could go round up cattle with my dad, I could go trail riding, I could go to a gymkhana. It's that kind of all around, we'll do a little bit of everything. And that's what I love about our quarter horse breed, is that different versatility that we have. So I think for us, the important thing is we try to raise a family-friendly horse. So we breed first for mind, conformation, and then we have some blue roans, so we do get some color in there, but we don't breed for that. It's first for mind and conformation. So that's a little nutshell of Rocking Heart Ranch.
Great. Thank you, Melody. We'll go ahead with Bert.
Okay, so my name is Bert Mourtis. I'm not a first, second, or third generation rancher or anything. I'm a manager of a new equestrian facility by Diamond City, just outside of Lethbridge. I moved here from the Netherlands in 2011. Grew up with Friesen horses. That was always the breed that I grew up with, and yeah, something that was always in my genes. After I moved to Canada, I thought I was going to say the Friesen horse goodbye, and that it was over. Until we actually ran into another mare not too long ago and got back into the breed. And right now we have 6 Friesians at home. We have several brood mares, and yeah, really exciting to share the knowledge and also the breeding practices with you. Friesen horse is, of course, a very recognizable horse. I mean, we have, I think, probably one of the most recognizable breeds out there. Breeding the Friesen, they're jet black. They have a very distinct look to them, right? So it's something that comes with challenges to breed the right Friesen. And yeah, definitely looking forward to share my knowledge here with you guys, and also very looking forward to hearing how other breeds are doing it. So,
great, thank you, Bert. Next up, Jennifer Buck.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm Jennifer Buck, and I manage a thoroughbred breeding farm, a commercial thoroughbred breeding farm, just south of Calgary, called Highfield, where we stand Canada's top stallion, FedBiz. We breed anywhere between 50 to 90 some odd mares every year, and full out about 50 something mares at the farm as well. And yeah, we're in the commercial breeding business. and we raise the racehorses. So I hope that we'll talk a little bit more about that later, and I'll let Jill take it over from here.
Okay, Jill, your turn.
My name's Jill Barron. You've probably seen me flying around here this weekend. I've got to do lots of different things, but I'm here on this panel to represent the Lusitano horse breed. Myself, third generation cattle rancher, grew up with a quarter horse. We have basically a quarter horse breeding program to keep myself in good horses. And I've recently imported a Lusitano stallion from Portugal. So we have a Lusitano breeding program about to commence. The Lusitano is fairly new to the scene in Canada, North America, but it's really catching fire. If you're not familiar with the Lusitano breed, they're from Portugal, and they're used to fight bulls. So they're the bullfighting horses that you see on YouTube and such. And they've recently found a big purpose in working equitation, which is basically functional dressage. So it's a very exciting breed to be a part of. They're very intelligent, agile, smooth, easy lead changers. They're stock horses. They're amazing trail, ranch. I do everything on mine. So I won't take up too much of your time, Ryan. I think that's all we're here is just to kind of talk about what we're representing, and then you get to rapid fire us. It feels like I'm on Jeopardy or something like that.
Not
here.
yet, but it's coming. Thank you to all of you for being on our panel today and agreeing to be up here while I'm on a mic. I appreciate that, especially you, Melody.
I'm glad you appreciate that.
At the end, folks, we hope to give you a little bit of time for Q&A. So if there's anything that you hear from the panel up here that you would like to ask about towards the end, we'll give you the opportunity to do so. So what a great panel that we have for you here today. Lots and lots of knowledge in the different breeds that they represent. And I would like to go back through, and we'll start at the opposite end. So we'll start with you this time, Jill. And the first thing that I would like to ask is if you would tell us a little bit about the registry for your breed, and if there are any requirements or restrictions in the actual breeding and the proliferation of those animals.
Good question. The Lusitano breed is similar to the warm blood registry, if you're familiar with that, but the Portuguese have a revision process. So my stallion flew over from Portugal, and then the stallions have to be 4 years old and ridden under saddle. So a Portuguese judge flew over, and we had a revision, and they judged them walk, trot, canter, so their gaits, and then they also judged their conformation. So, and I know of a handful of stallions. I think they revised, a dozen in North America this last revision in the fall, and they do fail them. 3 or 4 of them failed. So it's a strict registration process to get them in it's called the APSL. So that's the Lusitano registry in Portugal. So they register all the breeding stock, mares and stallions, which I really like from a breeding standpoint. I think they've kept feet and teeth and the breed really pure conformationally too because of the selection process. So that's a pure APSL breeding stock that's revised by a Portuguese judge. So my stallion, he has went through that process and we're all good. So he is registered in the Portuguese breeding book. And then there's also a registry in the United States called the U.S. Lusitano Association, and then the IHALA, which is the International Andalusian Lusitano Horse Association. So he's registered through the IHALA as well because then we can register crossbreeds. So a very popular cross with the Lusitano is a quarter horse. So when you cross the two, it's called an Azteca. I believe the two breeds really complement each other. So through IHALA, we can register these part breeds. So it's quite a rigorous process to get them registered in the Portuguese stud book, but I really appreciate their, the fine-tooth comb they use to. There isn't honestly many, I don't have the quote or the fact, I wish I did, of how many stallions are in the book, and it's on a global scale, it's not that many. Yeah. Like I think there's only around 6 in Canada, and I don't even know if they're all registered in the Portuguese stud book. So
it's interesting for me coming from the stock horse world where frankly, it's a free-for-all. You
Yeah.
can breed anything you want to anything you want. And so there must be some level of quality maintained when you have inspections done and that kind of thing. We've had the conversation before amongst quarter horse groups about the possibility of going back to inspection like they did in the old days in the beginning, but I don't think it's probably possible at
I think
this
we've
point.
let it get a little far in the quarter horse world to go back to it, but who knows?
I have two questions for you. The first is, could you tell us the difference between Andalusian and Lusitano? And the second is, in that F1 generation of the Azteca, so the cross between Lusitano and quarter horse, are they still considered Azteca if you breed that horse back to either one of the original breeds?
So to answer your second question, yes. The second generation is an Azteca still. And then your first question, and a lot of people I think are more familiar with the Andalusian breed over the Lusitano. I don't know that for sure, but from my experience, everybody goes, oh, Andalusian. I'm like, well, actually, Lusitano. And there's quite a difference in my mind. The stud book used to be the same. So these horses, way back when, were bred for war. So these were the war horses that the conquistadors used to go to war on. And then the Andalusian is from Spain, Andalusia, and the Lusitanos from Portugal. Okay? In the 60s, they split the stud book. So the PRE is what the Spanish horses are called. So the PRE has their own, they have a revision system as well, and then the Lusitano now has their separate stud book. So the Andalusian through the years has been honestly more used for show, carriages, royalty, because the Andalusian gets the long, long mane, and they have all the knee movement. So it's kind of showy and flashy. And the Lusitano is the stock horse, the bullfighting horse, the work horse, more per se.
Great, good info, thank you. Jennifer, so the same question, if you would tell us about the registry for your breed and if there are any requirements or restrictions on the proliferation of the thoroughbred.
Thoroughbreds have to be all live covered, and you have to have proof of that in the DNA that you send in. So you have, within the first year, you have to send in DNA and photos of your progeny, and the mare and the sire both have to be registered with the Jockey Club. And yeah, we just try and keep control of our population of thoroughbreds and keep the value, and that's it really.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Thank you. Bert, same question.
Yeah, so the original registry for the Friesen horse is under royal protection in the Netherlands. It's a very close stud book. Stud book opened in, I believe, 1877. They've always been breeding specifically for the specific Friesen phenotype, right? Initially, you saw quite a few brown Friesens as well. The breed went through two major bottlenecks in the 1920s, 10s, 20s. They were almost went extinct. They had the really flashy, more modern-looking Friesen originally. Then they decided to actually breed something that's a bit stockier that farmers could use. So the Friesen got heavier, bigger. Then after World War II, mechanization in agriculture caused that, the Friesen was again obsolete. So the one thing that happened again, is they started to breed for a more high-legged Friesen, a bit more of a modern look, and went away from this farm Friesen to a riding horse, and that's kind of the Friesen that we see today. So as the breed has gone through several phases in its existence, the practice has been very much the same. So just like what Jill was saying, that approval status for stallions is extremely strict, probably even stricter than what you have with the Lusitanos, from what I gather from Jill. So every year we have about, let's say, 600 colts that are presented for stallion inspection. They have 4 rounds, and in these rounds, they tighten the nuts a little bit And eventually we are left with about, anywhere between 4 to last year 9 colts that actually get a breeding license. That means that they change their name, they get a Friesen name. Friesland is a province in the Netherlands, they have their own language even. Their own names as well that are quite recognizable. And the horse also gets a 3-digit number behind its name. And as soon as that horse has a 3-digit number, the value of that horse probably quintuples, and you're looking at horses that are anywhere between $500,000 to $1.5 million because you have that really exclusive breeding right? So can you breed your if let's say you have a stallion at home, a Friesen, can you breed that Friesen to a mare? Yes, you can. Then you end up in what we call the B-book. B-book is something that is in Holland. They have the B-book. Because European legislation actually makes that we have to have a registry for these purebreds. Here in North America, we don't have that European legislation, so we are very exclusive here. And you have to have a Friesen needs to be bred by an approved stallion that has 3 digits behind his name. If it does not, you can, through a loophole, register it through the Netherlands. But that's something that we as breeders really like to discourage. Because those stallions that have those 3 digits behind their name, they have really specific traits that we're looking for. We know a lot about their genetic health. We know a lot about the way they move. They've gone through this extensive testing so that we can assure that we are only training with the best of breeding, with the best of the best. So right now in Canada, there is 1 approved stallion. He's in Ontario. In the United States, there are, I believe, about 16 of them. And there's also a lot of sale of semen from the Netherlands. That's frozen semen. And if you want to breed with fresh cooled, you have to go to Ontario, where you have that 1 stallion here in Canada, or you have to look across the border into the US.
Great, good info, Bert. Go ahead, Jill.
I just have a question. I'm learning too, so I love this. Are the stallions ridden in your? Yeah.
Ridden and driven.
Cool.
And then these stallions also have several steps. So as soon as they get their approval status, a stallion can then eventually go on to get a single A, double A, triple A rating, depending on how good they do. From there on, they can get an elite predicate for either driving or dressage. They get their elite predicate if they are Prix Saint-Georges or higher in dressage. And from there on, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? I mean, and eventually when you have a horse with all these predicates, their name gets longer and longer, right? You first have the name, then you have the 3 digits, and it gets longer and more elaborate. And as a breeder, you really want to look at a horse that has all those predicates. At the same time, you also create a genetic bottleneck, right? If everyone would breed with those stallions that are that good, then you come back to the genetic bottleneck.
Sure. So, go ahead, Jill.
One more question, sorry. Do you revise mares?
Yeah, mares also go to inspection. Take a lot of time here, sorry, but a mare needs to be solid black. It needs to be healthy, conformation-wise. It needs to be good. If that's the case, the mare upgrades from full book mare to a stud book mare. If you have a mare that is a little bit above the average quality, you get a third premium stud book mare. Then on top of that, you have a second premium star, then a first premium star, crown, model, and then model elite. So we do the same thing with what we do with the stallions, right? I mean, you can breed any mare, but we really want to look at the best quality mares. So that, if a mare is just a stud book mare, then of course you can breed with it, but it's probably not going to get a whole.
So I have a question, Bert.
Yes.
Your B book, that's for Friesians only, or is there much happening where Friesian stallions are breeding other breed mares?
Yeah, so KFPS, the mother registry, does not register anything that's a crossbreed. And they have to register the purebred Friesians in the B book because of European legislation.
I see.
But here we don't do that because we don't have to worry about it.
Right.
There's a lot of push, especially with people who are into more the Mexican tradition. From California, New Mexico, Mexico itself, the people are really pushing into trying to get, for them to get an approved stallion is something that's quite
Good.
quite costly, of course, right? So they just start breeding with their own stallions, and they are really pushing to open up the North American market also for B-Book. But as traditional breeders, we're very much against that.
Right. Very good. Great info. Thank you, Bert. Melody, your turn.
Well, I feel like after hearing Bert's experience, the American Quarter Horse Association is a little bit like the Wild West, maybe, in the sense
Perhaps.
that, or we're just easygoing, I guess. Maybe that's it. So, to be quite frank, I took over our breeding operation 6 years ago. So I can tell you what it's like from a newbie coming on, dealing with AQHA and learning about registrations and stuff like that. When it comes to the stud books and committee, I'm going to defer to my man here on the right here, Ryan, because he is the guru in that. So I can tell you, though, from our perspective, when we want to cross a mare and a stallion, we're getting DNA tests done. So we're testing for disease. There is no inspections or anything like that, but if you want to register, we do have to have the sire and the dam both DNA tested. There's pictures that are involved, but really, we can, from a cross perspective, we've got a lot more freedom. There's not, there's a lot of different stallions out there across the world. I believe we're the world's largest registry, and that's probably because we've opened our doors that way to make it. There's a lot of different disciplines within the registry as well. So the stallions and the dams are going to represent all the different type of specialties that you're going to get into. And they're not registered within that specialty. It's just the bloodlines. There's the foundation. There's the historic, right? When we look at the Quarter Horse Association, the many years that it's gone back, it's maybe it's been around for a while. But I will let you cover the stud committee and stuff like that, because I know that's something that you are like right in the thick of things, bud.
I think that probably you've already answered the question quite sufficiently. I am involved I'm a committee member on the Stud Book and Registration Committee at AQHA through my AQHA directorship. And what that does is it visits each of the changes or deletions or new rules that are added each year in order to register quarter horses into the registry. So yeah, we could really go on and on about that, but it is quite an open breed, and as most of you probably know, the basis of the stock horse in the world is the quarter horse. It is the largest breed registry in the world, and the reasons for that are because the quarter horse is very versatile, because it is an open stud book, it's not an inspection system. And so you've got, really in my opinion, you've got the AQHA, which is an umbrella corporation over a number of different breeds or specialties inside of there, because you can go from a 13-3 hand-high cutting horse to a 17 hand-high hunter under saddle horse, and they're all registered quarter horse, but they're very, very different. So I think we'll move on with the next question, and this time, Melody, I'm going to start with you. What I would like for this panel is if you would just talk for now about your primary consideration in breeding selection. We're going to come back to the secondary things, or the things that are in priority 2, 3, and so on. I just want you to tell me, what is the primary consideration when it comes to making breeding decisions? Melody, you're up first.
All right, so for our ranch, when we focus, it is to elevate the breed. And so our first focus in elevating the breed is mind. We breed for mind. We want a good, solid, trainable mind.
Great. Bert.
Health. The bottleneck that I just described that the breed went through twice has created that the kinship, so that means how much the Friesen horses are related to each other, is substantial. We're talking about 18% kinship percentage at some point. That is, compared to other breeds, is high. That is causing some genetic issues as well. That is, like, significant amounts of money are being invested trying to map that in the genome. For me, breeding health and making the right choices to make sure that we have horses with longevity, healthy horses, is the primary objective, absolutely. And so the blackness and the fancy movements and everything else is secondary.
Good. Okay, Jennifer.
Thoroughbreds, I'm going to say that we look at the page, the pedigree. What are we producing? What have they? How have they raised the progeny of the stallion, the progeny of the mare? What's that page look like with that cross? And that is what that's our main focus.
Sure.
And are we breeding to race, and are we breeding to sell?
Right. So it is indeed the Thoroughbred the second oldest breed in the world after the Arabian?
Oh, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been bred for generations now to be faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see an increase over time in the speed of Thoroughbreds over, say, 10 generations?
Yeah, I think every year we're breaking records. We're breeding to get faster, and times are getting faster. And you can watch the Breeders' Cup and the Triple Crown. You'll see a lot of those times getting improved.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Jill?
Rideability, temperament, conformation.
Hold on, lady.
Yeah?
One.
Oh.
You only get to pick one.
I'm always pushing the boundaries.
We're trying to nail you down to one.
I'm going to go with rideability and user. I mean, the goal is to create an animal that can go and do a lot of different jobs and be handy and, has that movement and that Lusitano elegance flair to it.
So rideability is disposition? Are those words interchangeable?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I would agree on that, my opinion is also the first thing that I'm looking for is disposition, always, 100% of the time. So I'm with Melody on that and a number of the others. But I think that as far as it goes in the stock horse breeds, that what we're looking for there is usability, pliability, having a horse that's amenable to doing the things that you would like it to do. Because there's such a vast array of uses for the quarter horse that the first and foremost thing has to be their disposition. And for me, my first glance of the horse's disposition comes from looking at their eye. So the first thing that I look at when I look at a horse is their eye, not their papers, not their conformation, and not their color, not anything else, but their eye, because that is attached to the foundation of the brain and what it's like in that horse. Their disposition is all there. You can see it. Okay? Next up, I think we'll go back to the other end. We'll just play ping pong back and forth here. Now, Jill, please tell us about the next things that you would consider when making breeding decisions after your primary.
You could have just let me keep going, and then we could have went back down. So that disposition, rideability, conformation is always very important, right in stride with that, and then looks after that for me. All three are very important, but they all play different roles when you're selecting breeding pairs and your crosses. So
great. Jennifer?
Yeah, so I think if we've looked at the pedigree and we see that we've got producing cross on that pedigree, then the next thing would be, how do we improve our mare? What would we want to add to the mare? Do we want her to have a little more distance? Do we want her to be a little quicker? Do we want her to have some height, or shorten her, or better feet, or shorter cannon bones? Or what is it about the stallion that we like that we want to add to our mare? And so when we're looking at our stallions, that's really what we're looking at. What does our mare need?
Yeah, indeed. And so I have a question for you, Jennifer. Tell us about the difference between sprinting thoroughbreds and distance thoroughbreds. And in regard to breeding, are you always trying to look at breeding a sprinter to a sprinter and a distance horse to a distance horse?
Well, I think you want a horse that has a little bit of both. And I think that if you have a sprinter, you want to add a little bit of distance to that progeny, because then they can have more options to race. And if you have a horse that can run in some sprints and maybe even push them into a distance, that's going to be a little bit more added value to your horse. So.
Great. Thank you. Bert?
inherent to the Friesen breed is that conformation, the movement, right? So form is function. If you have a specific phenotype, if like the length of the croup and all that stuff that's relating or relates to how the horse moves, and those things are incredibly important to us. So yeah, conformation, I would say. That was my number 2.
Okay, do you have a number 3?
I do actually. My number 3 would be a character.
Yeah, indeed. Good. Okay, Melody, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say ditto on number 2, conformation. So again, mind and conformation are important. And again, it always amazes me across the breeds how similar we are when we're making breeding decisions. Like Jennifer, you're talking about adding to the mare, right? Like what does the mare need? So that's the type of stallion. And I think we do that in all the breeds. There's a lot of commonality across the breeds that we're all looking for good disposition or mind. And then we're looking at build and conformation, right? So a good horse is a good horse. It doesn't matter what breed you're in.
Indeed, that's the truth. Yes, it is. For myself, of course, disposition is first. I think that conformation has to come second, the same as many of you do, because our conformation is what gives us longevity in the good disposition of the horse that we're raising. So provided that they're put together well, they should last for you for 20 plus years. That's our hope anyway. I think that it's probably a good segue to begin talking about genetic testing. I know at least in our breed that genetic testing is an important thing that has been addressed by the AQHA. I hear sometimes that, some negativity towards the genetic testing that's done by the AQHA, but it's not so much approaching it from the fact that those diseases exist, it's approaching it from the fact that the association is trying to take a hold and do something with those diseases. And so in that, in our association, we have to now 6-panel test all breeding stallions. So they have to be 6-panel tested. I'm going to put genetic traits in there probably as number 3. At that point, I'm going to go back and look at the pedigree and the consistent traits in the pedigree. Why do we have pedigree? Just to trace consistency. That's it. It's the only reason that registration papers exist, so that you can go back through and look at the horses in the ancestry and know why they are going to do what you're hoping they're going to do, or at least give you a better chance at doing what you hope they're going to do. After that, I'm going to look at the record of that horse or the ancestry of that horse, again, going back to consistent characteristics, and then in their color. Next up, I would like to talk about, with the panel, how do you define excellence when it comes to this discussion in horse breeding? What would you say is excellence in your breed? And Jill, you're first.
I thought it was the other end's turn to start.
Is it the other end?
I don't know. It's all good. I can start. Excellence in this breed, when breeding them, I think, do you get the question? I don't understand what you're asking me.
So the panel is called Breeding Excellence.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm asking you is, in your opinion, as a breeder, what would you define as excellence in order to breed forward?
Okay, I did understand. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
All of these things that this panel has just talked about, to me, is putting forth, that excellence to the world. So in breeding excellence, all those things we just talked about are four most important things that we need to focus on and really stick true to that and try and put out the highest quality animal that we can to the public and be true to our breeds and our roots. I love the Lusitano and how rooted they are in history, and they're a very old breed, and I want to be true to that. I want to have Portuguese bloodlines. I want to have my horses are all from bullfighting bloodlines. They have changed a little bit, and they've been going into the dressage focus a little bit, so it's getting away from the traditional. So there's kind of two types of Lusitanos we're starting to see. The bullfighting style and then the more dressage style, so they're getting taller, more extension, the breed is changing a little bit. For me, I want to stick to the traditional style of Lusitano, so the more stock horse side. So, to answer your question in short, I think it's sticking to those things that we just named and doing our best to represent our breed.
Indeed. Does the Lusitano allow any outside breeding to other breeds?
Yep. Yeah, you can cross with anything. That's where the Halla registry comes in. Yep.
Right. Okay.
The quarter horse is a very popular cross. There's actually lots of Arabian Lusitano crosses, so a lot of the Portuguese have Arabian blood in the Lusitano cross. Actually, the Lusitano goes back to the Arabian way, way, way back when.
Yeah.
A very popular cross is also Thoroughbred Lusitano, for sure. I don't think I've run into many Friesen Lusitano crosses yet. Are they starting to?
They're starting to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great cross.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I second that one.
Yeah, I'm sitting up here going, okay, well, how can we cross it and everything? So, yes, crossing them I think is a brilliant move as well. So
Yeah, lots to offer. Okay, Jennifer, how would you define breeding excellence?
Well, I think what are we trying to do? We're trying to produce an athlete, and in thoroughbred racing, we're trying to produce something that's going to win and be very fast. And so we want that page. We want that's basically what we're doing. We constantly think of the page and what it's going to look like. So if we're when we're thinking about breeding excellence, it's this is an athlete that we want to make, and all the components that we're all talking about here, it's a pretty broad question as well.
It is.
But I think that's really what we're looking to do. I don't know.
That was a broad question in order to give you some leeway.
Yeah.
Tell me, when you talk about a page for the thoroughbreds, that is an earnings record of all the ancestry of that thoroughbred?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, Bert?
Well, in the Friesen world, it's not so much the breeder that determines the excellence. Of course, we all like to do that, right? We all want to say, well, what we breed is absolute fantastic. Finally, the judges at the inspections, they have the last say, right? So I can, of course, all my stock, what I breed, is the best of the best. Until I come to the inspection, and the inspector says, sorry, Bert, but that's not quite what we're looking for. And I go home all butt hurt. Right? So who decides actually what is excellence is the judge. Now, sometimes, there's a panel of judges, so there's more people involved. At the same time, I do realize that if there is a specific horse that might not answer the phenotype that the judges might be looking for, that horse might have certain qualities that you definitely want to pass on to your offspring, right? So it's kind of like, I think, it's you yourself have a really good understanding, or supposed to have a good understanding what is excellence, and then have the objective judging at the same time. And I think those two factors combined actually can determine what excellence is. So for us, the inspections are very important.
You're hired for next year to come back for the panel, Bert. Great. Melody?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a comment that I said earlier. Breeding excellence is about elevating the breed. And I think it's important for everybody to understand not every cross you're going to make is going to be excellent. And I think it's a breeder's responsibility to discern where those crosses are excellent and where they're not, and to recognize that and to own it and say, you know what, that's not a great cross. So, and to do something about that. And I think, to me, that is what breeding excellence is knowing that there is good, bad, and ugly, understanding the difference, and doing something about the bad and the ugly and owning it. That, to me, is excellence.
I don't think I even need to follow that up. Well done, Melody. Very good. So this time we're going to start on your end again, Melody, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about breeding horses and the methods of breeding horses, breeding ideologies, breeding theories, that being outcrossing, inbreeding, line breeding, however you'd like to define those things. And so what I'd like to know is if your breed has any reference to how it handles line breeding specifically, and then if you do. So we can have a conversation about that. Melody.
Yeah, great question. And again, I feel like the Quarter Horse Association, it sounds like maybe is a little bit looser with this. So I'll say from our operations perspective, we pasture breed 98% of our herd. We AI some. We've also done some hand breeding and stuff like that. And I love how you said inbreeding, line breeding, however you wanted to call that. I think it's one of those things, and this is the old saying, it's inbreeding when it doesn't work, and it's line breeding when it does work, right? 100%. And I think, you know what, so for us, and this is where, you know, Ryan, you've been doing this a hell of a lot longer than I have. We have done line breeding. When we found some traits on our ranch horses that we really want to emphasize, we will do some line breeding. But we're very careful about how many generations back that goes. So I think that's important, that I think it can work. I think it's a useful tool. To be frank, though, and quite candid, I think sometimes we're getting too specialized in some of our breeding practices we're doing with AQHA. When I look at, and Bert, you kind of alluded to this, like with your stallions, you've got that bit of genetic bottleneck. I think AQHA is headed that way a bit. I think we're going to a bit of a bottleneck sometimes in some of our bloodlines. I would like to see us go broader. I would like to see us get back to where we're not just focused on one or two main stallions, that we've got a more versatile group and that we understand that there's different specialties. So from my perspective, long story short is, have we line bred? Yes, we have. Has it worked? Sometimes it has, sometimes it hasn't. Again, good, bad, ugly, own it.
Yeah. Good. Bert?
Well, because of the genetic bottleneck that the breed went through twice, you are inbreeding, whether you want it or not. So for us, the most important thing is to keep the inbreeding as low as possible, right? So I don't think that anyone ever would breed, line breed, or inbreed on purpose in the Friesen world, because you just want to keep that number, that coefficient, as low as possible.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, like for us, any type of inbreeding needs to be avoided at all costs, just because we need that diversity, we need that genetic spread so bad. Right? With a huge population right now, the Friesen horse is incredibly popular worldwide. The demand is skyrocketing, but then realizing that the bottleneck that it went through twice, yeah, that has really limited the gene pool, and with no outcross possible, right? It's something that you just have to be very conscientious about. And there's a lot of push also for outcross.
Yeah.
Now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that I'm not necessarily looking forward to. I hope we can solve it within the current stock that we have, but we might have to look outside of the breed itself at some point.
You might need a geneticist to look and see if you can even breed out of the
There's enormous amounts of money that
situation.
are being spent on this. Right now there's a 5-year study done by a combination of the University of Texas, a couple of universities in the Netherlands. They're combining forces to see what they can do. I mean, it sounds pretty ominous. You don't have to worry. Your Friesen are not going to fall dead, probably, right? I mean, they're fine. But we have to look ahead, right? We have to make sure that we can ensure health for generations to come. And then the genetic health is just something that's incredibly important. So.
Jennifer.
In thoroughbred breeding, there's a lot of data available to us, so we can look at a cross that might have some line breeding, and we can see what that has produced in the past. And if it is a strong, if it's a strong cross in a line breed, then yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And we've done it ourselves. I think some people just prefer not to, and some people really like it. So I think it's every breeder has their own preference.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Jill?
My answer is actually very similar to Bert's. There has been genetic bottleneck problems with the Lusitano as well. And line breeding, yes, has for sure happened through the years. And again, it's hard to be the last one in this row because everything's been talked about. So it's good when it works, and if it doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board. But again, there's only so much breeding stock in the Lusitano pool that similar to the Friesen.
It seems to me like perhaps we've solved a problem here for two breeds. You two need to switch some genetics.
I was going to say, I highly
just,
recommend it.
Right? Continue on.
Yeah.
We do that in the Thoroughbred and the Quarter Horse all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, line breeding is a tough one. You know, my thoughts on line breeding are that it sets a type for us. So what it does basically is narrows your genetics from something like this to something like this. And it gives you a type that you can set forward because there's more homozygosity in the genes of your horse when they're heavily related. And if that type is right, then you can take that forward for multiple generations, even when you're outcrossing them to something entirely different. I think that probably what's important to talk about when we talk about line breeding is the fact that, in my opinion, I'll take back the fact part, okay? In my opinion, in today's world, there's very little proper culling done. When you're line breeding, you have to cull properly, and you have to cull hard. And if you don't, you can't achieve the results that you're looking for. So that's a super important part of it. I think we need to say goodbye to Jill Barron. She's got another thing to do. Can we give you a thank you, Jill?
Yeah, 2:45, if I may. I'm in the Egg East. I'll be riding one of my Lusitanos in my clinic. If you want to come check them out, we're going to be doing Garocha handling stuff, which has been super fun. So thank you, Ryan, for having me, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, yes, indeed. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of fun now, panel, and there's only 3 of you left, so you have to answer these questions. This is a shotgun session. Are you ready for this?
All right.
You have to answer these questions as soon as it's your turn with 1 word. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's
So
rock
we're going to
and
start with Melody, and then it'll go to Bert, and then Jennifer. And then the next time we'll start with Bert, Jennifer, and Melody. Okay, the next one will be yours, Jennifer. Are you ready? Melody, favorite horse color?
roll. Blue Roan.
Bert, can I guess?
Black.
We knew it. We knew it. Jennifer.
Bay. A bay.
A bay. A clean, classic bay.
Clean bay.
Pretty hard to beat. The beautiful classic. Do you like a dark bay?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my preference
Yeah.
too. I would be very hard pressed for myself to, if somebody came along and said you can only have one color horse for the rest of time, it would be hard to not be a dark bay or almost like a brown color with no white, by the way. No white for me. Most of you already know that if you know me. Okay, Bert, you're next. Favorite height for a horse?
165 meters. So,
Can you speak to us in North American, please, sir?
Favorite, what was the question?
Favorite horse height?
Oh.
16.2.
16.2. Thank you. I understand that much better than the metric system. Even though I grew up in the metric system, I should understand it. Jennifer.
Yeah, I would say 16-2.
16.2. How tall is FedBiz?
16-2.
Yeah. Melody.
15-1.
Yeah. I would go with about 15 hands for our breed. Okay, Jennifer, you're next. Competition or recreation?
Competition.
Melody.
Recreation.
Bert.
Competition.
I would go with recreation first and foremost myself. Okay, who's first this time? Bert, I think you are. Jennifer? I lost track.
It doesn't matter.
Jennifer, you're first. Mare, gelding, or stallion?
Mare.
Melody.
Mare.
Mare.
Wow, look at this panel. I'm going to stay the same and go with you on the mare, for sure. Melody, you're first here. Favorite horse of all time?
My first Shetland called Tiny.
Oh, Bert.
A non-Friesen. My other horse. I have a Mustang from the States that I imported, a BLM Mustang. His name is Boulder. And that's my buddy.
Okay,
So,
all right,
yeah.
good. Jennifer?
Oh, I would say Cape Canaveral, who was one of the last Mr. Prospectors, stallion that stood at Highfield, and he passed away a couple years ago. I have his tail in my bag, and I'm going to go have something made in one of those booths somewhere.
Great.
Yeah.
Good for you. Bert, you're first on this one. Reactive or quiet?
Oh boy. Reactive.
Jen?
I personally like a hot horse.
Yeah.
Reactive.
Okay. Melody?
I'm older now, so quiet, but it would have been reactive about 10 years ago.
And mine is quiet and always has been. Jen, you're first on this one. Shoes or barefoot?
Oh, that's a hard one. I like barefoot, but in racing, as soon as they're start on the track, then they'll have shoes. But
Okay. Melody?
Where we're at, shoes, because
Yeah.
we're in the mountains.
Bert?
Prefer barefoot.
Yeah, agreed. Must-have tack room item, Melody.
Lariat rope.
Halter.
Yeah.
Twitch.
What breed were you representing
Wait.
again?
What was the question again? Must have in our tack room?
Tack room. Yeah.
Yeah, Twitch.
Okay, Bert, you're first on this one. Foaling in stalls or pasture? Or something else?
Pasture.
Okay,
Preferably.
Jennifer. Jen?
Well, I'd prefer pasture, but we breed early, so it would be a little cold here. But
Sure.
yeah, we foal in our stalls.
Yeah. Yeah, Melody?
Pasture.
Yeah, me too. And the last one we're going to do is young horses. So let's say foals on their mamas. Handling or no handling? Jennifer first.
Oh, absolutely handling.
Melody.
We're not touching them.
Okay. Bert.
I have to give an answer. I would say handling them carefully.
That's a good one. That was smart. You like cut the middle there.
Yeah,
You're
I
like
did.
handling
I
carefully.
did.
Very political.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And for me, we handle all our babies from the time we're born. I believe that I would like to start in on that foundation on those babies right from the time that they come. And I want to give them the best opportunity. In the event something happens where they're not stressed out all the time and we need to treat them or something like that. And then moving forward too, they just seem to be calmer, quieter, more gentle, more used to human interaction and humans being close to them. So, folks, we have 7 or 8 minutes left. Is there anybody who has a question for the panel across the board or for an individual on the panel? And I would like to hear your question first, and I'll repeat it so that everyone else can hear it, and then we'll answer it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know, you're talking loud and I still can't hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about it. The question is that she's curious about the thoroughbreds and why only live covers. So, Jennifer?
Yeah, it's a rule. Live cover. It just keeps it keeps our, I guess, the purity of the breed. Keeps the value of our progeny. We have to. There's a lot of effort that goes into where we take our mare, who we're breeding to, you know, how many like every stallion, how many mares are going to that stallion. I just think it just keeps the population a little bit more pure.
It's a great question because, you know, looking at it from our point of view on the quarter horse side, of course, in the quarter horse world, you can ship semen, use frozen, you can do ICSI, you can do embryos, you can, you know, almost do anything. And so we could probably have a whole panel based on breeding methods and how that works and why. I just want to ask very quickly, Bert, is there any stipulation as to how you breed in your breed?
No. No. Live cover does not happen anymore, I think. For the rest, it's all frozen, imported from Europe, fresh cooled, embryo transplants.
Right.
The same as what you
All the
described.
things.
Yeah.
All the things. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, folks? We've still got a few minutes. The first hand I saw go up was back here. Can you yell, please, ma'am? Sure. You know what? If you want to ask a question, just go ahead and come up here because we'll try to get through as many as we can. So the question is for Bert on the Friesians, when you reach the genetic bottleneck, how do you expand that pool? How does it ever get any bigger? And I'm glad you have to answer that question.
Yeah. So I was talking to an old timer the other day, and he said to like, he just quit with breeding, and he said to me, he said it is so rewarding for him to see how the breed went from near extinction, which he witnessed himself, to now being represented in over 70 countries in the world. And that was something that he found, yeah, he almost became emotional when he was talking about it. So it was really, really special for him. And the way we are dealing with this is just numbers. Numbers, right? I mean, if you just start breeding, your genetic spread gets bigger. Your gene pool will expand because you are adding, out of every cross, you're getting a wider genetic spread, right? So numbers is the biggest one, and also just the responsibility that you have as a breeder. You just have to make sure that you have that spread of bloodline. That's, yeah.
It's an interesting conversation. I'm not sure how your breed will find their way out of it, because I know that even inside of the AQHA genetic conversation that we couldn't possibly deny stallions who carry a genetic disease on that 6-panel testing because the genetics are too small, they're too few. So that's amazing to me that even in the largest breed registry in the world, we couldn't just cut out some of the population because the genetics are too few. So, Hazel. Okay, this is, yeah. So Hazel's question or comment is in regards to breed registries moving to digital certification and microchips, and what's happening there inside your breed registry and how you feel about it. Jennifer, you go first?
Yeah, I think it's a great tool. It makes our lives a lot easier managing horses.
So does the Jockey Club currently have digital registration?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's great.
You're a proponent of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good to know. Bert?
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're moving there, and I'm thankful we're moving there, because I'm not gonna lie, when our ranch burnt down and we lost all those papers in a fire, that was a big pain trying to get everything back. So I'm sorry, but we need to move at the speed of technology, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are not happy with the AQHA making this decision, but I think we're overdue.
Interesting. So I've been at the forefront, having been on a task force through the Studbook and Registration Committee on AQHA with the implementation of digital certificates. It has been a polarizing issue, we'll put it that way, very polarizing. There has been a lot of conversation on both sides of that. I certainly see the benefits of it moving forward, but I also in my heart love holding those papers in my hand, and they mean something, you know, and you get them in the mail, they do. I understand all of that. So I have a little bit of difficulty being strictly in one camp or the other. The only thing I want to throw in here in regard to AQHA on that is that when you get a printed certificate, it has come off of a digital database already. So if you can print that certificate yourself or ask for a printed copy from the association, it's really not any different, except that it's not the negotiable copy. Negotiable meaning the one with value. That will, once it changes to digital, exist just digitally. So I also can see the benefits from moving forward. We have time for one last question, if anybody has one. Go ahead. The question is, again, in regard to the Friesians and being able to breed forward and look for, I'm going to let you answer the question, Bert.
Yeah, so for us, the registry, the association is incredibly important. They put so many resources into actually assisting breeders in making the right choice. They have so much available that, like, you know, there's, even I keep discovering new tools that you have at hand. The breed would not be anywhere where it is today. So yeah, we owe that pretty much everything to the association, that's for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for us today. We will be back here at 2 o'clock tomorrow. If you'd like to join us again, I'm sure that we'll have some of the same conversation and a little bit of different conversation as well. Each of us here, I think with the exception of Jennifer, who will be around for the weekend, has a booth here if you'd like to have any follow-up conversation. And if you would, please give a hand to my help to this panel here. Thank you for being here, all of you. Thank you.